Hey guys, Michael B. the Game Genie here, and I'm back with part 2 of my massive December update to my NES Complete Collection Chronicles. So guys, like I alluded to in the last episode, Swordmaster was the start of a massive pickup I got from a local collector here in Newfoundland who decided that he no longer wanted to collect games. I met this guy, Michael Lake, who decided that he had over, close to 500 NES games. He decided he didn't need to hold on to them anymore. He wasn't going to collect anymore. He was just going to get a flash card and play it that way. And you know what? No big deal, man. That's cool. Not everybody wants to have all these Nintendo games. They just want to play them, and that's a fine way to do it, I guess. So anyways, how I found Michael was someone else posted on Facebook that they had just found a copy of DuckTales 2. I was like, oh my god, where did you find this? And lo and behold, they said, well, there's a Kijiji ad up right now. So I went and jumped on the Kijiji ad as soon as I could, and I said, hey man, I'm looking for, and I scanned the list and I said, there's about 10 games there I need. And anyways, he never got back to me. The next morning, I took a look at the list again and I said, hey, sorry about this, but there's actually about another 10 games also on that list I need. So he wrote me back and he gave me this incredible price. I was like, wow, that's awesome. So then I went and picked up the games from him. The guy's name is Michael Lake. He's actually a really super nice guy. Funny story is, when I went to meet him and I got to talking to him, I went and picked up the games and brought them home, and I told my wife about it, and my wife said, well, I'm going to give some of those games to you for Christmas. She said, you know who this guy is, right? I said, no. And she said, your mom actually works with his mom, or worked with his mom, and lo and behold, we actually knew each other as kids. We used to go to the same work Christmas parties for our mom, so funny story. So of course then I called my mother to tell her that I had bought games off her co-worker's son, and she said, oh, you bought some games. Well, I'm going to give you some of those for Christmas. So lo and behold, it turned out that all the games I bought were split up between my wife and my mother to give me for Christmas, which meant I couldn't play them for like another 20 days. So anyways, that was kind of a drag, but cool all the same. I helped my wife and my mom get my Christmas gifts, and cool that I knew this guy. So anyways, I've delayed this long enough. Let me show you all the games that I picked up off Michael, because there's some great ones to show you this time. Of course, the first one is a very rare and hard to find, maybe the second most expensive Hudson Soft game on the NES, Bomberman 2. Boy oh boy do I love Hudson Soft, and I'm so excited to finally have Bomberman 2 in my collection. For anybody who's played the original Bomberman or Bomberman on the TurboGrafx 16, you know what you're getting here. Bomberman 2 is a great game. It's a great follow-up to the original Bomberman. It's your typical maze platformer where you're destroying objects with bombs. You've got to basically figure out the paths, what's the best way to destroy the enemies, and the real challenge is not getting hit with the enemies, it's blowing yourself up with the bombs. Otherwise, this is a fantastic game for anybody who likes maze platformers and anybody who's played Bomberman. I highly suggest you pick this up, but it is a tad pricey. Next up is a game that I've been looking for an extremely long time. I'm a huge fan of this series, but the third installment is actually very hard to find. Thankfully, I now finally have a copy of Adventure Island 3. Adventure Island 3, I'm a huge fan of Adventure Island, so much so that I actually named one of my video series game pickups from the new Adventure Island after it. This is a very close follow-up to Adventure Island 2, where it kind of moves away from the original Adventure Island, but stays with the same format. You get the animals back, and you traverse the different worlds trying to get through at the end. I haven't played a whole lot of this yet, but it's very similar to Adventure Island 2, and I'm very excited to finally have it. Next up was a game that's kind of hard to find. I never see it around, but it's also one that I wouldn't immediately jump to grab and pick up because it didn't look like a lot of fun, but maybe I was a little surprised. Boulder Dash.
I've got to tell you, I was very surprised by Boulder Dash. I wasn't expecting a lot, but you know what? This turned out to be actually a very fun game. It's, again, another maze puzzler type game, but it's actually very well done. It's colorful, it's bright, the graphics, while not superb, are fun, and they do the job. So anyways, Boulder Dash, surprisingly a very enjoyable game.
Next up is a Tengen game that I didn't even know existed. It's funny enough because I always seem to think I have all the Tengen games. Maybe now I actually do, who knows. I still think I'm missing one or two. But anyways, I picked up this game of an iconic video game legend. It's very different. Pac-Mania.
Pac-Mania. I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't even know this game existed. But I really like it. It's basically Pac-Man done in this quasi 3D type setting. Think something like, kind of like Marble Madness, or kind of like Snake Rattle and Roll, something along those lines. Except Pac-Man done that way. Very interesting, very unique take. One thing that I was very surprised by is you can actually jump, which adds a very interesting dynamic to Pac-Man. Anyways, Pac-Mania. It's a fun game.
Next up is another unlicensed game from Comerica. Dizzy the Adventurer.
I've mentioned a couple times before when I'm talking about unlicensed games, especially Comerica games, that sometimes they surprise you and they're very good. Unfortunately, Dizzy the Adventurer is not an example of this. I'm not a huge fan of Dizzy the Adventurer. In fact, I find it to be pretty terrible so far. I don't know. It's mainly because I don't really understand how to play, but it doesn't seem like there's any attack mechanic, and maybe I just don't know how to play, and there's that reason. The only saving grace is that the music in it's actually pretty good. So, hey, it's got that going for it.
I'm a huge fan of the angry video game nerd, so it should be no surprise to you that I have my own particular little subset of NES games that are entitled the AVGN games. And funny enough, if you actually go check it out, mostly all the games that he reviewed that are a little bit uncommon, also getting a little bit pricey now. Glad I finally got this one because I never see it around. I'm guessing they didn't sell a lot of copies. Daydreamin' Davy.
Well, another one of the AVGN games off the list, Daydreaming Davy. I've only seen this game once before in the entire time I've been collecting here, and I passed it up. And you know what? I'm not really missing out on anything. This is not a superb game by any means. While recording footage for this, I was amazed that I actually made it past the first level. It's very confusing, it's very dull, the cutscenes look terrible, not a great game.
Next up is a swashbuckling adventure on the NES. Pirates.
Ultra, otherwise known as Konami, made Pirates on the NES. And I gotta tell you, this is gotta be one of the worst Konami games. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound so negative this time, but I really was expecting something a lot more fun from Pirates than what I got. You start out with a swashbuckling stage that is very unintuitive. It's just not very fun to play. Then you get out on the ship, you don't really know what you're doing. You get in these ship battles that I just found dreadful. I'm not a big fan of Pirates so far.
So there are a lot of games that, honestly, I'm at the point right now where I have over 600 games, and I'm still amazed when I find a new one that I've never heard of before. This is another example of that. Stanley, The Search for Dr. Livingston.
I'm not really having a lot of luck today on the good game situation. Stanley, The Search for Dr. Livingston is another game that I'm not very fond of. Graphically, it's pretty good, music's okay, but it's another one of these games that is just very strange, and I don't really know how to play. The attack seems okay, but it seems like it's very dreadful to find a hit. You start out looking for a grapnel, which is actually a grappling hook. I managed to find the grappling hook, but then it didn't seem to help in anywhere in the stage outside, and couldn't use it in town, so I really don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not a big fan of Stanley, The Search for Dr. Livingston. This is a game that I'm amazed hasn't showed up in an AVGN episode. You mark my words, it'll be there soon.
If there's one common theme from some of my early NES Complete Collection Chronicles video that I haven't used in a while, it's getting excited when I find a game from Taito Puznik.
Finally, a good game to talk about. Well, at least an okay game, one that's fun. Puznik. Puznik is a excellent Taito puzzle game. I don't really know much more to say about than that. It's fun. I enjoyed Puzznic.
I didn't actually start collecting unlicensed games till later on in my collection when I found a couple of the Wisdom Tree games for very cheap, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to grab unlicensed as well. What the heck. So anyways, as I've been collecting along, I do get more excited when I find the licensed games, and I find the level quality for licensed games is a little bit higher. So really, when I see an unlicensed game, I'm like, well, I've got to get it because it's part of the collection. I don't get it because, wow, I'm really excited to try that game out and play it. This game, however, is the exception to that rule. Micro Machines.
This has to be the gem of the Comerica games, and what a coup for Comerica to get the Micro Machines license, because this is a great game. In fact, I never knew about Comerica growing up, other than Comerica releasing the Game Genie here in Canada. No one had any Comerica games. That was nothing you saw, except one. A lot of my friends had Micro Machines, and that's because it's a fun game. It's a fun racer. It's done very well. It's done with kind of like that Chippendale-esque, everything's mini. But then in racing terms, it's very fun, very enjoyable. If you ever see it, I definitely advise you to pick it up.
Next up is a very bizarre game on the NES, one that I don't know a whole lot about and has a very strange and interesting theme to it. But my good friend Stu Fish is a huge fan and he always talks about it. Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom.
Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. I gotta tell you, this game is not what I was expecting. I was expecting some kind of weird platformer, but in fact, what I'm experiencing is kind of like a text-based adventure game. I don't know, kind of like an RPG, I guess. Anyways, if you've been following me for a while, you know this is not really my jam, but you know what? It's kind of fun. I got lost very early on, so it's a game I'm definitely going to need a guide for, but from what I did play, the little bit I did, I actually had a little bit of fun. So, Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom, it's a text game, so not really my jam, but one I think I'm going to go back and play again.
And last but not least, like usual, I saved the best for last. This is a very rare and uncommon game. It usually fetches a pretty high price. I got a really good deal on it. I'm excited to have it. In fact, I actually missed it. This wasn't in the listing. I got to his house, and Michael said to me, hey, you don't happen to need this one as well? And yeah, you bet you I did. So I actually had to leave and get more money and come back to get it. But I'm glad I finally have it in my collection, and you know what? It's actually a really surprisingly good game. Cowboy Kid. Yeah, look at that cover. These two guys seem really friendly, don't they? Really friendly.
Cowboy Kid is definitely not what you're expecting. You hear the name Cowboy and you think that it's either going to be some kind of Wild West shooting game, kind of like Gunsmoke, or maybe an action platformer, kind of like The Lone Ranger. But what in fact it really is it's a game more similar to a Legend of the Mystical Ninja game. Yeah, I know, it was very surprising, but you know what? It's actually very good. Graphically, it's beautiful. The gameplay's fun. The interaction with the community really leads to something. Like, you actually have to talk to people, which will open up new paths in order for you to catch the bandits. I'm not 100% on the attack yet. I find the attack a little bit strange and hard to do, but otherwise, not bad. Music is just outstanding. Like, I can't tell you how good the music is. I was completely rocking along and it kept me energized the entire time. Cowboy Kid, this seems like a fun game. It's not usually the type of game that I'm very into playing, but it got me hooked. I was very surprised.
So guys, that's everything I'm going to show you today. I really tried to put these in a theme the way I was kind of doing this. It doesn't work out perfectly though, unfortunately. The first part of this was games that I got from other people and games that I purchased that I could use right away, so games that I got myself. The second part was supposed to be games that my mother got me. Unfortunately, the games that my mother got me went above and beyond the number that my wife got me, and I kind of wanted to even it up, so I kind of cut this one a little short. I hope you guys don't mind. Anyways, that's enough of that. What you really want to know is the update. For those of you who've been following along at home, last time I had 635 NES games. This time I added 12 new games, which brings my total to 647 NES games. Oh, you smell that? so very close to that last 100 games I need. And you know what? I added some really great games this episode, games I'm very excited about. Of course, I'm very excited now because next week, in the next video I shoot, it's going to be the last of my December pickup, and I'll be able to give you the real total on how close I am. Anyways, guys, I hope that breaking this into 3 parts hasn't been too irritating or anything. I just really didn't want it to be too long, and I hope it's still interesting. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching and following along as I try to complete my NES collection. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time. Oh, you're still here. I got nothing else to show you. You can turn off the video now. Turn it off. Press stop. Leave already, will you? Alright, you can stick around. But you should go. Or I'll go. One of us will go.